No jokey cold open today, just respect for Chadwick Boseman. He was one of the best we had, and I still can't believe he's gone. How did they do filling that void with this new film? Let's find out.
Show them who we are.
Black Panther, Wakanda Forever is the long-awaited sequel to what's been maybe not the biggest hit, but the MCU's most culturally important film, and of course their most critically acclaimed and biggest Oscar player. Black Panther took the world by storm in 2018, was a huge Oscar contender, and just provided a hero for African-American kids all around the country and the world. And I really liked the film. I can't say I loved it. It's probably in the middle of the MCU for me. I rewatched it right before the new one, and I still felt similar in that I think the richest parts of that film are the themes and the characters, and that's something that thankfully this sequel really expands upon. But yeah, Chadwick Boseman shockingly passed away a few months before production started on this, so they had to really overhaul it. And I think everyone's been sort of looking toward this with cautious optimism, you know? We have faith in Ryan Coogler and the crew to get it done, but also, is it actually possible to continue on without him, and what are they going to do? And I'm happy to report that I think they did a fantastic job with this film. Instead of recasting or replacing Boseman, they decide to sort of bring the rest of the supporting cast to the forefront, including his family members and soldiers and subjects and other people that we all met in the last film, along with some great new characters. And as is always the case with these comic book movies, I won't go into heavy details on the plot, but essentially, now that Wakanda has revealed herself to the world, everyone wants a piece of that vibranium. So, you know, there's a lot of conflict, and countries are saying, hey, why won't you share your resources with us? And Wakanda are like, well, because you guys won't use it properly because you're idiots. And so that's sort of the crux of this. And then we meet a new threat in the form of Namor, played by Tenoch Huerta, who's a sort of underwater being. And I won't go into any more detail about him and his people, but he follows on from Killmonger as a really great, really understandable sort of villain. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say anti-hero, but he's such a compelling presence and a really different but welcome antagonist for this film, as well as the usual antagonists of international governments and the US being idiots and all of that stuff. So it's a film about Wakanda, a country sort of grappling with an incredibly changing landscape and the grief of losing their king. So it's very much a transitional film for the nation and for the characters. And I think this was a really, really good choice because we're all processing the loss of Chadwick Boseman, but the film manages to pay tribute to him without wallowing in the loss, if that makes sense. He's all over the film, but it really commits to telling a new story, telling a full story, and fleshing out all of these existing and new characters. And it doesn't wallow in it. It carries on with the journey, and it's about remembrance and building up as much as it is a film about grieving, and I really, really appreciated that. As an action blockbuster, I think it surpasses the first one in almost every way. It's quite long, it takes its time, but I think that allows for a lot of storytelling, and the action sequences in this feel really well staged. They feel more real. Like the casino sequence in the first one was probably my favorite action sequence in it. And a lot of them feel like this. They feel more carefully planned out. And of course, some of it's fake looking, but I think the CGI is really put to good use in this one. Just all the technical elements are top notch. I think Ludwig Göransson has topped himself again with this score. I could definitely see it getting an Oscar nomination. It's a really, really good, really dynamic score that, builds upon the original themes, but also brings in some new themes for the new antagonists and stuff like that. And I thought these new themes were really, really interesting. In terms of the characters and cast, this film really is Shuri's story. She was really close with T'Challa, and she's feeling his loss probably more than anyone. And she sort of finds herself wrapped up in this new adventure with these new antagonists because she needs to just get back out into the world rather than sitting around and mourning all day. And she's great. Letitia Wright is great. I maybe have some issues with her as a person, but she shoulders the load of this film wonderfully. I know she's a phenomenal actress. She was excellent in Small Axe, so I think she was the fine choice to sort of center this story around. And Angela Bassett is just in God mode here as well. She's excellent. There's been talk of maybe a supporting actress nomination. And honestly, I'm not going to put that to bed just yet because she is really, really damn good in this film. And she's a more prominent figure and takes more part in shaping the story than she did in the first one, and she is really, really great. So is everyone. Okoye, who's always been one of my favorites among the Dora Milaje, and Danai Gurira is great as always. She gets a lot more to do. She gets to do a bit more dramatic, heavy lifting. We learn a bit more about her character, and there's some fallout from some of her actions from the last film, and I thought she was great, as is Winston Duke as M'Baku. He was one of my favorite parts of the first film. He gets a little bit more to do here now that he's a bit more of an ally. He's still very headstrong and has his own way of wanting to do things, but he's a great presence and provides some of the film's rare moments of levity. The other major newcomer here is Dominique Thorne as Riri Williams. She's a teenager who becomes caught up in this whole international conflict because of a machine she's built, and she ends up becoming involved with the Wakandans, and she's a great character. Wakanda Forever is really a film that just keeps getting better as it goes along, because it's long. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes long. I was a bit worried about that, but it starts a bit slow, not in a bad way. I was still on board, but then it just really, really builds, and it seriously takes the time to flesh out all of these characters' internal conflicts, and it's something that we don't get enough out of MCU movies these days. And I think my 3 favorite films of Phase 4 have been the extremely long ones, the ones that gave themselves time to breathe. Like Eternals, I was a big fan of. And Spider-Man No Way Home, I won't say takes time to breathe, but it is long, and, we get a lot of it. So, when they really try to pace these movies properly and actually decide to tell a story rather than focusing on shoehorning in a bunch of cameos and setups and references, you get a better product, because I really think this film works on its own. There are a couple of pointless references to TV characters and trying to connect the larger universe and stuff, but it's pretty minimal, and it doesn't drag down the film. There aren't any ridiculous detours to say, hey, remember this character? Or, oh, here's what's coming up in the next movie. No, it really feels like a complete story that's been told here, and it has a really satisfying emotional conclusion that I am still thinking about. Also, another thing this gets right that a lot of recent MCU films have gotten wrong is that it's actually properly lit. Oh my God. There's a little bit, but there's not much of that just flat white lighting where everyone looks like they're in a sitcom and that no one looks like they're in the environments they're in or that they're in the same scene with each other. No, this is well lit. There's darkness, there's colors, there are beautiful, unique environments, and I really love the visual look and feel of this movie. It's one of the MCU's better efforts in that regard. Ryan Coogler had a really tough job ahead of him for this, and I think he passed it with flying colors. I think they made just about the best movie they could have made with the amount of adjustments they had to make in such a short time. You wouldn't think it. I know some people have said this is messy and all over the place, but I really didn't feel that. It felt considered. It took time to tell its story, and I was on board every step of the ways. I'm going to give Black Panther Wakanda Forever an 8 out of 10. I like it quite a bit more than the first one. I do think it might end up being a little bit divisive. In fact, I know a lot of people I know who really love the first one are not liking this so much. So it might have the opposite effect, whereas people who weren't so on board with the first one dig this one a bit more. I just like that it explores a bit more, it goes to some more out there places, and I had a lot of fun with it. So I'm very curious to see how this one goes. In terms of its chances as an Oscar contender, I really have no clearer idea than I did before I saw it, because while I liked it more, it's hard to say how it's going to be received by everyone else, and it's not the cultural phenomenon that the first film was, so people are really gonna have to love it. I'm curious to see if they do, because I did, and I wasn't really expecting to. That is it for my review of Black Panther Wakanda Forever. As always, subscribe to the channel, more reviews coming. Follow me on Instagram, that's where I sort of post everything I'm doing, and follow me on Letterboxd for more in-depth movie reviews of everything I'm watching. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Let me know what you thought of Black Panther Wakanda Forever.